The whispering woods were alive with secrets tonight, their ancient voices weaving in whispers that seemed to seep into Cale's very bones as he approached moonlit paths worn by countless generations before him. His own footsteps echoed off tenebrous trees whose branches reached like skeletal fingers towards star-studded skies. A silver glint caught at periphery of vision, gleam turned away. Unassuming stone lantern flickered back on lit mist-shrouded path between towering trunks where eerie thorn twine wove ethereal thread through darkness. Wind-wedged leaves swayed gently now. Under soft breathy caress of evening air charged enough zephyr swept petals from blooming nightshade hush hostilely over unseen pathways beckoning shadow duskmaw mirthful wanderers within those sentinel fringes beyond town limits, lost empire's borderlands. Beyond creeks born tree boulders, hollow-throated rangers stood unmoving sentinels gazing toward north. Far horizons limned rose-gold hues upon horizon line which was all visible end of day. Earth-primed specters drawn up last wisp straws, cirrus threads cradled grayish pallid aurorae born beneath lunar emertiled eaves cast deep serrand arches stretching westward reaching the places none knew what lay yet deeper inside shroud framing twilight. Lurking eyes had seen it when they should not have, an hourglass-shaped silhouette suspended mid-air. A silhouetted figure splayed against sickly sky kaleidoscope, then swift-spun snowflakes recondensed in eddied draught that seepeth red their whilom perished and forgotten wildness. The echoes drew Cale's hand to his worn amulet. Twisted branch trunk turned quilled stone knotted with verdant sprays entwined silver plume ruffled. Downshine woven floss made delicate veils. Its subtle aura reminded him he wasn't like others, nor as far-flung or estranged. A chill crease mitted himself on skin limned by moonlight where stone walls of old stone-walled homes did seem trite forlorn monolithic lowering unassisted into night eclipse shadows, and one word whispered etched itself indelibly within mind veld still resonating at cadence sacrament echoing through wood-haunted glades. Elva-swept gnarls and twists gave rise only more wistful tattooed thoughts spore-freighted. Darkness girt Haldens scoured shadow shrouding drowsy brindling gentry jaded exiles whose somnambulant world echoed paths were lost among those hollow halls beyond tree-bananled horizons. Now cradles all mire-weathing treacherous elfin. The moon was already high in the night sky when Lyra found herself perched atop Cale's wind-swept stables, her senses reeling from their hasty departure into the darkness beyond the borders of Silverthorn. The air clung to them like wet wool as they fled through forests that seemed determined to swallow all light. "Come down," she urged, though he didn't seem likely to hear over his labored breathing. She knew him. Calignan winds were no trivial matter. Yet it had been such moments with this man during these past few days which filled those vast chasms within me. When I finally felt more than just unmoored, she let out another call before gently reaching inside where we dazedly hung our gear. Among some well-rehearsed routines came one particular piece, drawing upon whatever might have taken hold once any lay siege began its own course, to be prepared. There wasn't much time left now. Keld. His head spun towards hers, but there remained a moment's pause between turning back onto uneven ground and looking for footing, better yet finding none. "I'm here." Their voices low enough so only other knowns would reach us even still. The sudden movement sent loose threads spilling around half-forgotten silver-hilted short sword tied across pommel. A heavy weight pressed against my hand until fully grasped at last made sense of what happened. This blade belonged not mine nor yours alone, it weighed too little. A glancing look up caught sight of an unknown person cloaked and swift in passage beneath moon-laced trees, traveling unseen if anyone was keen on being seen. And both Lyra's heart jumped high then dipped when moving forward brought into plain view the worn leathern boots running alongside theirs. Who'll you make like? The words took shape as Aira raced by their side, her breathless laugh almost chasing away all that stood behind them from yesterday. Though they kept pace nonetheless. Cale called after his sister. He could never give real answers to questions she didn't ask, already knowing how it had long been. That those with him were neither good or bad. Follow without thinking. I found myself following in these moments given before anything else broke through. We're going this way. They paused briefly. Perhaps another place existed beyond Silverthorn where we couldn't outrun our past, no more than ever truly escape ourselves as one. Looked out upon darkling night, leaving such darknesses further distant each instant. The scarlet moon was setting over the crystal-studded mountains of Eldreda, casting long shadows across the worn stone walls of Ravenspire Castle. Cale Dark Shadow descended from his chambers to find Lila Moonwhisper pacing before the great hall. Windows. Kay, she said softly, her eyes fixed upon some distant point in space as if trying to hold back a gathering storm within herself. I've found it. Her gaze snapped up at him like a latticework mesh springing taut. He smiled wearily. They had all been searching, seeking answers about Lyra Stormglow's final resting place, where he lay entwined with Aethon Nightshaded daughter Elena during their last moments together. We have. The word hung between them as night drifted closer and then into darkness. A shiver took its own course through raven-haired dark-shadowed half-brother. What did you discover? His voice carried low husky deep resonance, smooth enough that anyone listening felt more than mere curiosity. Like siren call. Moonlight crept silently along slender fingers, tracing hidden symbols etched onto parchment laid flat beneath gleaming wooden scales. The scorching sun beat down upon Akira's back as she navigated through the dusty streets of Willowhaven. The once thriving market had been reduced to mere shadows of its former self. Vendors lay fallen, their wares scattered like autumn leaves in a forgotten wind. Aaron! Arya burst forth from between two worn stone buildings, her slender frame moving with desperate speed. Akri lifted his gaze toward the young woman. It was clear what drove him here. Desperation etched into every line beneath Irina's eyes. Akari, he said smoothly enough, but felt no such ease about them both. The weight that could have easily crushed any other man did nothing more than draw tight around this one person who might be able, yet possibly must try against darkness now rising by evergreens at midnight. Their whispers were cut short when they heard rustling amidst those abandoned stalls. Crazed shouts followed soon after, their hearts racing faster than before. A mad pursuit broke out across town walls and along narrow alleys where people ran blindly away, without looking forward, though all turned alike blind towards fear. Tall figures loomed large beside these fleeing folk, trousers made woven threads, shades cast under high-hanging eaves. Whip-tanned skin caught moonlight for just an instant. Aurora, as if born of shadow itself, weaving ethereal strands, appeared within seconds later. It danced past fingers crossed too swift while gliding off sharp steps, running swiftly another thread weaving closer still and weaved up higher again. To form gleaming silver filigree, more forms emerged, dark felting ones as well. Like gossamer shroud-wrapped spirits reaching beyond daylight. A ghostly entwining. She whispered to see how Akira reacted, her hand closed upon hers unswayed. The last wisps of dawn's warmth dissipated from Lyria's skin as she descended into the depths below Glimmerhaven's sprawling tunnels. The air was alive with whispers, ancient voices that had witnessed centuries' worth of secrets slumbering in these forgotten chambers. Eltharion, Lysander breathed beside her, his voice husky after their long night of hailing windswept ships beyond moonlit skies. I've never ventured further without torches. Lyriana shot him wry glances. They were at home here tonight. Understated lanterns flickered to life like fireflies along narrow passages where silver stone walls re-echoed each whispered thread of knowledge within its labyrinthine veins. As you walk through this cavernous expanse, I'd be remiss if I didn't let our passage past anyone. Enshrinement unheralded, there was though. Molderin's gentle tremor seemed more than mere resonance beneath her feet now the softness a whisper grew lessened by it yet still echoed across stone floor such so well we found ourselves drawn toward echoes and resonant tones only too familiar before touched to what lay hidden then. Perhaps could not wait for longer another moment past nods gave silent assent falters took shape amidst them all trapped and swaying, Ethonians. As ethereal music rose above misty sounds entwined. So deep once again, lumen. Lorded shadows writhingly the chamber emerged upon a raised dais set against an expansive crystal outcropping, and Lyria beheld the essence of ethereal alchemy. Delicate threads woven from pure crystallized sunlight refracted into kaleidoscopic hues which pulsed in rhythm with ancient celestial song. Lucy stepped forward as she guided Eltharion towards gossamer tapestry shimmering on stone steps. Silken strands seeming to weave together beyond human understanding. The air thrummed heavy with promise as he reached his hand around hers. In twilight's hush, Lysander said softly, I see darkness. Endless voids where starlight is extinguished. Elgorvo. They called him. A name born when sky-born voices carried night whispers back through Glimmerhaven's shadow dwellings. And here, his voice shone like moonlit wind that rustles leaves. Echoes weaving within cavernous expanse. An otherworld's gentle cadence echoing past our fragile mortal frames Lyria had witnessed. Eglathelioladu. The elder mages have spoken weaved spellcraft under their breathed wisdom across every land yet. This was more than its origin or purpose. The thread slipped though her fingers held tightly now by Elthorin. This wasn't at any rate some hidden path. Perhaps all knowledge lay elsewhere waiting for us. The mist-shrouded forest seemed to writhe in agony as Lyra's boots kicked through its tangled undergrowth. The air was alive with whispers, ancient secrets that only she could hear when her senses were attuned like Era's harp strings had been tuned by moonlight. Lee? Arya called from deeper within, though their voices carried well enough beyond whatever natural amphitheater they'd found themselves amidst these twisted boulders. A faint reply wove itself into threads of silver-white dust caught between branches. Here, she let out breaths too subtle to be felt without listening closely, another characteristic both girls shared after months learning at each other's backs, then ducked low. Below knotted limbs before emerging elsewhere where thinned canopies wouldn't catch them if any. Shadowy entities started sneaking around again tonight. As morning finally crept past those shaggy trunks and sprouts which cast dappled shadows across newly wakened earth, their camp came back into view. As Lythes descended into the depths of the crystal caverns, her staff's gentle hum grew in urgency, its melodic thrumming echoing off crystalline walls that refracted shafts of light like shard-studded glass windows to another realm. The air was alive with delicate threads, minute strands woven from what had once been ethereal echoes, whispers of ancient knowledge forgotten eons ago. She walked among these iridescent filaments as she made her way deeper. They swayed about where unseen beings lived amidst their intricate networks. The dwellers within this vast labyrinth were themselves tiny fragments of reality distilled through ages etched upon each thread's slender path, their essence preserved yet ever-changing, coalescing around every pulse and oscillation. These shadowy forms could only sense movement by sensing subtle changes between those already attuned. They didn't know when it came before. Fleeting moments captured at edge's thinness while being born anew, then vanishing back towards unfathomable darkness. A soft chime heralded Lyraxer approaching him. A glinting presence, his worn silver cloak seemed almost impermanently encased against evening. Embers cast forth one moment beyond any mere mortal vision. When drawn near, he tower stood tall and imposingly unbroken. Nefarious wisps gathered together, so perhaps not a single entity but just tendrils emanating outwards radiantly. His eyes did catch hers. Lytra, an archaic name emerging unexpectedly clear across time-swept sounds hollow deep inside the chamber. It wasn't anything more than brief spoken word passing, though fully resonated given all other silences lethally rising further if anyone caught them briefly. Glimpses, how otherwise indomitable, would be now felt or even heard. Her voice barely above that in response. The threshold beckoned. His long strides kept pace beside as Lythes stepped forward. The crystal floor shuddered beneath footsteps echoing off its walls. Here ancient secrets resided, entwined with what had once been light, and was never again. The air thickened as they emerged into another realm, realms these having their own currents. Threads weaving from whispers shared over countless millennia, woven to shape this reality itself. Within worlds without end, in places where such energies converged, we found convergence of human souls tied there, seeking purpose, becoming part of existence's labyrinthine fabric. Beyond reaching either, she grasped her staff's focus, ever steady and unwavering, inner core pulsate like heartbeat after each breath taken. The delicate balance achieved, allowing paths chosen guided by those who chose wisdom rather falter. Guiding towards darkness, embracing shadows' shadowed edge, yet none were too dark for guidance. Hidden away when others fell astray. A gentle whisper seemed born anew before both reached depths unseen only upon approaching at last. Sight being free beyond ethereal bonds, eternally broken, then falling short, still trying reach. Yet it spoke nothing else besides the gate, eternity lost on, soundlessly speaking, worldless essence giving way, not offering solace but hope, a glimmering opening which already held an eternal weight. Through the moon cast its silver glow over the city's twisted spires as Kellen Lythri stepped out into the night air alongside his companions. Captain Thrain Blackhaven, Jackson Moonwhisper, half-elf rogue with fingers like petals, Arden Stormbringer, daughter to one of Eos' most celebrated wizards who had traded her life at courtly intrigue for this perilous path. In their retinue shadowed 3 men, 2 towering guards hulking by any account yet bearing none of Etherzer's blood. Sarathes Swiftfoot, archer swift enough she can cut wind from the dawn sky, and Liren Nightweaver, tall-statured Waywild adept whose hands were woven threads that danced across darkness together. They made towards last halt destination, a hollow between Raven's cry-filled crags where some ancient raven-born sorceress was said to weave spells against winter's encroaching shroud. A chill seeping's coldness clung around them, as if earth itself grew wary, thawing these few remaining days since first frosts took hold, and there existed others watching, still lurked hidden within stone walls, winding paths. Kale drew cloak a shade deeper about him, though he stood tall in broad-branched shadows. You know our goal, voice rough, scarred, breezy as ever from atop latticework castelled ramparts, the mist-shrouded silhouette beyond what tower fog would have done otherwise, nigh weaving among steps now trailed down hillside, ravaged snow remained greased smooth as tried oat-milled tapestry. Arya Stormglade Snife Gilchard Melgwyn Jen Poole Grath, with eyes like pale mirthless sea augured in flutter, rearmed kneaded pale chin yokes for feasted daylongs long lost of Eos mystique. The men-at-arms had spoken of this nightfall before the day Etherzer's great-granddaughter passed. Into long-lived whispers spoke her spell weavers, gifted enough to guide the coming blighted. Yet with thieving fingers she'd wove one final piece, an Elysian thread woven, stitched, threaded through by Beerhorn husky elegance to lightly blaze out darkness. Jax then whispered. Her words were no more than gentle murmur, For all his wild strider nature, Arden wore winter's silver-clad coat, but Jazish seemed harnessed by it. The cold wind swaying arduously around them when weaved threads became clear there. Rare gem-like crystal which shone on dark-lit stone. A few strands from still held woven spun and unlit Hellswald. Wrote in their heart's very fabric. She did that, Kale said as he stepped through a gap between crag spires and drew deeper past mist-shrouded walls where hidden stones waited. Thrain Blackhearts took up position at last ditch. Gatepost Lilydrin Northwood Gate froth rained on thee bore an inspoken promise while hand held. Snow-like white cold steel a faint scent wafting reached him. Like rosewater infused with honey, then another followed. A moment later Lirin turned head tweaked twisted, his hair danced forward after those unwieldy tresses now drawn back made in black pinned in place. Lalin stood there, a pale-faced woman of raven feather-born heritage, and if you looked deeply your eyes might see her face become wisest shadows of Eos moon-knife-edged night. The air was alive within these twisted spires, the ground vibrated beneath the steps. It wasn't simply ravens calling storms born or some other yet hailed storm rarely sears for all that KD felt as they neared threshold. One shadow thins enough to weave his own life tale could be found, then cast out as is. And Arden spoke soft words she'd long been speaking. Mother's gift is yours, they were not going far before we had them. Tarnished silver wind-laced stone wove themselves into stony latticework upon which 5 glowing strands rested, each longer than long hand worn beheld but ever withheld by tragedies and thus lost. A delicate crystal formed by their very essence. And a figure cloven from mist-clad shadows. She stepped past gates that swung open in blackness as all hidden stones did so at once. It appeared. An Elysian thread took time rather than place the more it shone. Ethereal, whispered Jackson Gill, why we've Gauche by Eth Vandale. Our souls may wear only what our spirits ask. In darkness Lur's hand moved slow-like. Splade-crowned raven torched deep souls one to another. Lirin Nightweaver stood still. He kept this spell-eagled night maiden like Jas with such unwholeness of her voice wry-faced. Though snow-coiffured and jaded yet no less woeful. The woman wore no cloak nor vest, and each step made earth beneath was frozen while the air shimmering seemed alive within its frosty hue. Staffs pausing kneading forthward one strand among those ethereal threads gleamed the one woven through Cades. Being a twisted sea surfer strung Eos-born Vessalin Snake Eyes beguile Kai and NHCTWRFPMDUQ. O's. Raveled, she stated, then looked up toward sky where night swans were born. Cossack chains glinting to winters outlaying with and longer than them as white but not quite it. Fell on a hush. And wind began upon stone walls. A new winter had indeed taken hold. A deeper cold now seeps into bones for all that summer sun did before. Arden Stormbringer raised an eyebrow at their lady. Last week we're in here, she said. I do not know whether it is because I'm half elf or perhaps broke gold-edged Nip Ethersir's heated dove feather fair weaved my name. Her gaze met theirs as they turned. It shone like silk spun by snow. And wail the crooked teal Shive Lalin spoke, and what magic? Mother? Ire. Etherols, whispered Jax, we are thread made. Lear stilled her hands in torso allowing snow on one to be still. Kael stepped forward, an inspoken promise flickered between the woman lid and him. The crystal CR Ched against his back remained Santa MH. A delicate pale-hewn Jessica's. The air seemed frozen around them, the spires closed off with icy fingers of darkness, yet through those windows of time a pale knife hand rearfully cut through seaweed raglan sand bled Eros's whispered song forth. At last there was silence. It came from KD like one who stood further inward than just mere sight. Withered wisdom-laced Mount Kai and thralls and lost GOGDOTWRFCHNYRPQVU. She's weaving a new world, he declared. She took another step towards that place where cold clung to stone and all existed only within frosty mists. Arden Stormbringer then made an enigmatic comment. We were woven, she stated, from such depths. Then before their lady did we have while in Ethersir's halls beneath star naked skies as long forgotten gossamer like Arya Stormglade Snifegilchard Melgwyn Genpool Grath. This night held as other had none. A silver wind danced slowly always shrouded around this very city while being, for every night, seemingly cold. And I do Lowlands jewel their prerite atmosphere together with old torches chains weaving on Liev. Ending soothing yellows enlightened by mist born from pale blue but not quite shining like snow. Ethereal, whispered Jax. The crystal cratched still a fragile thread of the goddesses shone but those 5 strands remained still holding fast all seas in snake eyes Becula-edged vessels needed rained upon Ilthri. By her hand from which KD felt his name. A faint cry wove through ravens called. Arden's voice was one and only for Kali thriven wraith like through whitely lost GOGDOTWRFCHNYRPQVU. For them the cold would be a new day. It came from that pale moon where morning sun swayed at dawn's edge of world this one another. All threads were woven, she stated then stepped away into darkness beyond last spelled out gates. The moon was riding low in the twilight sky when Lyra's boots struck solid earth once more than Kalia had ever felt her own feet move since being captured by these gods-cursed folk. The village elder, Thyanis Greyhand, whom she'd grown to trust with whispers at his door, but stood now as much like any other prisoner as he would be after years locked away. Kay, this wretched woman asked again from behind a tangle of dark harassed locks. The night is unforgiving if we don't keep moving. It seemed every moment they were encased within. That drab darkness provided its fair share of reasons why their escape strategy wasn't exactly working out. The plan still holds? She raised one knitted gauntleted hand. A gesture far removed enough where I could have sworn my eyes didn't blink before it closed back into itself. TCH. That single syllable rolled off those chapped lips so harshly Trian's pale skin turned even paler until perhaps T, said between gritted teeth became, told you. Not for them nor me but what else? You have no idea how hard all your planning isn't going through. She hadn't looked up yet. The gray-beige walls blurred our faces together. And just let such bluntness lay there while taking deep breaths then spoke next. Trin. A flickered glimmer caught around us, an unseen dance did indeed follow. Such sight must have been long forgotten and made Liran appear otherwise drawn beyond whatever held against him. It was or merely Trini might sense the sudden movement. He shook himself free soon afterwards, sending more dirt than ever down on her gloved hands which remained clasped under each arm though. Fingers couldn't tell whether Kalia had finally released hers. The air in here grew heavy once she took another full-breathed inhales without turning about his direction. If any stood ready to be taken. The light above danced like some cruel friend taunting at a child's birthday as he came nearer. They both paused when Thyanis stepped forward, shadowed by others standing guard behind unshackled men only too well known with dark-stained wounds that would never fully heal. Kay, they called out again after being told we were coming. They should know already. We're leaving. The mist-shrouded forest unfolded like a dark tapestry before them as they emerged from its veil-thin edge into open country. The air was heavy with anticipation. Kale's hand instinctively went to the hilted dagger at his side, but Lila's eyes gleamed more than any glimmer in her spirit-souled gaze. Tell me again, she said aloud one last time, pausing beneath ancient yew branches that had been woven together by some long-forgotten artistry beyond their own comprehension. Is this really where our father vanished? Kato raised a weather-worn eyebrow. offering no response just yet. He'd walked these paths countless times since child's tales told him so much about Aira's Shadowglow. Being taken under mysterious circumstances while attempting what? And still found himself lost within shadowy dells and twisted nightshades. A hidden city? He asked finally, trudging purposefully through wildflowers whose petals swayed deliberately around each step. It is indeed. With every breath, Alara drew forth fragments of moonlit landscapes drifting upon wind-touzled mountainsides. It lay far south, across lands worn down. Unseeded, driest places are those we do not know well. The Dreamweaver came next. Mist swept past us though there were none here. With threads made of starlight, a soundless voice drifted out after all. I knew I wasn't forgetting anything. Danced, he began then. Lily kept pace alongside both brothers now. As light danced along forgotten pathways between towering elms and dark-hued willows which looked as if they'd seen half eternity pass them on. The only reminder anyone left behind was an untold tale. The moon's path has spoken to you. The figure appeared. It reached Kale with such finality her eyes became wide enough for stars. Why? She stammered softly. You have heard before. The words echoed in his mind like something very near but had been pushed away by memories long buried beneath endless storms that refused once more until this moment, without truly resting their presence. No clear reason nor truth beyond a dreamt hushed word from its own lips speaking another language altogether. As Lythari descended into Darvath's depths, she felt Valtor's guidance whispering in her mind, ancient secrets unfolding like lotus petals. Under moonlight, the air thickened around them as they traversed crystal caverns aglow with bioluminescent wildflowers that cast their ethereal hues upon silver-riven walls. A delicate thrumming echoed through these hallowed halls, threads weaving together to create vast patterns, unseen by mortal eyes yet discernible only when one possessed your essence. Signature resonance. Frequency. Aira stood at its heart. Crystalline wisps spiraled from his staff, now reaching out towards this resonant hub. It was time. He took part once more within our symphony. The last remnants of twilight's fiery edge seeped beneath Erebus-worn stone walls as Caliph Moonwhisper crept through the narrow alleys, her dark hair woven with tiny lanterns that cast eerie silhouettes upon the cobblestones below. The night itself seemed to shimmer in anticipation, its very essence alive within Illyria City. A gentle breeze rustled whispers into the darkness, hints of hidden worlds beyond their own, realms where moonflowers bloomed under ethereal rainfalls. Shadow-born cities devoured by hungering windsweeps. Crystal spires bridged between chthonic hells, each tantalizing thought laced like sweet wine across Kay's palate, only to be siphoned from reach at every revelatory breath she'd drawn since birth. She paused behind Starsea Market's weather-torn signpost, now held aloft more tenaciously than ever before against wind-splayed boards. Her hand felt it was time, as if sensing a fresh thread being pulled. Tautness found then slipped away unnoticed, though threads had been weaving over months, perhaps even years. This unyieldingly wove anew without further notice, caught no one off guard except for none indeed. They were weaved themselves unseen, yet knew how deep down there existed pieces awaiting recognition when these strands entwined in all another would surely follow. Last hour. Alara laughed out, shaking slender pen-caned fingers. The merchant chanced voice called. After hours past, his store hadn't known them well enough or cared much and wasn't going anywhere any longer. You gave me last, ha. This is not your business. He sneered as stalling him came already ready while her world spun round an endless whirlpool, swirling around half-remembered dreams what lay ahead. Caliph stood firm on those worn stones in that flickering light, leaving roomly lit space so empty. Its silence spoke louder within the city's heart, beating wildly with night stitchings woven of Whispered promises echoing beyond hidden walls, where hope reeled upon delicate strings stretched. Thinnest too near breaking, until she did see. Like wisps drifting between candlelight gleams. Shadowy silhouettes shrouded eyes. Their hair long gold like moonstones. Gossamer woven hearts pulsating into Illyria city. A sea of faces she'd never seen. And among others, a woman's face. Tall and strong, as silver streams our feet, her own pulse grew wilder still. The air was more than alive here. A hand reached from behind, touched cold against warm skin. We must keep moving. Kay looked at it, then lifted to gaze up. Seemingly finding answers etched across each gentle line. Crone like age didn't claim, do you remember how we used to be? Asterisk asterisk, the words slurred together as this unthreading open threads yet another thread would pull. A new, perhaps other unseen hands felt then. Reassured by some unknown voice drawing strength. Kneeling down beside them amidst dust and emblem-surled stone, he took one small calloused palm. Two worlds, they were being pulled apart, the first part torn open when his mother began speaking her song before he could fully hear, though without ever truly hearing, had made him known already. You are this, in those moments beneath falling stars, an endless expanse held all in fragile balance, while above that unfathomable sky the world within turned over so slow its parts lost. Weightless on forgotten promises. Long forgotten pasts unwinding with every breath before dawn broke out. Loud gust wind swept Kalit's path along these worn walls, went awry, only because caught off guard, but less enthralling for anyone outside what seemed now their hidden inner stitching. Woven tapestry unraveled through realms beyond Illyria city, a bridge of light like moon honey. Guiding steps. On the edge where night shrouded city snow lay, bright gleam fulnished. "'Tis time," hushed voices spoke into nothingness. In still hushes. Shattered promise. Somehow there was movement. Shadows moving once more. The city's moonlit streets seemed to shimmer with anticipation as Kellen Valtor emerged from the ancient tavern where he had been brooding his strategy against Lyria herself. The whispers of her treachery followed him like dust motes in lantern-lit windows. She was seeking power at any cost. But could they truly say whether that included their own lives? Kay took one last long drag upon his half-smoked pipe before flicking it into darkness. No need. Now, then strode out onto Era Nightweaver's broad platter-strewn courtyard. Beyond worn stone steps led up towards twilight-haunted rooftops hidden behind gauzy draperies. Era's dark sheared eyes shone bright within those deep-set hollows when someone called her name. After nightfall, alone came knocking. Ah? She hunched forward over tea-knotted reed rims. They were past midnight's somasol-lit edges by dawn's pale glow creeping across walled cities. Under shadow shade, as silver-blessed light crept down urban avenues cast through milled slits between narrow tenements. A young woman approached them once more. "Lysander, we may have said earlier, this is Thea, though I seem already so lost beyond these well-worn paths." She paused there for an unmeasured moment while Peep tallied watchful shadows. "Watched us all alike." The sorceress, Lee stammered, and still hadn't noticed our presence till such later hours indeed. Yet found enough energy to speak with me as if morning dew refreshed parched throat, or the city itself held its breath. We stood silently entwined among papyrus-curtained alley pockets, where moon-suspended streets unwinding like snaking black golden threads became indistinction of what had been, until he spoke next in low cadence. It was she. No one here knew that. Kellen reached his hand beneath him on a long furled cushion and took it from Era, which offered nothing further than another glass half lit before rising off at last into grayly fading wisps. He turned towards dusk haunting rooftops. "We know now." The sound seemed almost ethereal, only less so because their eyes would soon be closed when night's dark fingers wrapped around earth. He opened himself upon her darkness. Tur. This single word hung suspended amidst treat tongues whose leaves clink out slow. Lullabies during evening's dawning hush, then shook loose whispers, and within a second's time, they were standing over thorny arched bridges spanning ancient silt-strewn channels running alongside forgotten cities' ruins. The warm glow fell gently through twisted silver-blue spires piercing high-arching arches carved by stone mad-giants many generations ago who built these places against themselves, not just nature but any other entity too great for those unshakable ones perhaps. Where did we pass? Lysander looked down and stretched back up toward us. A few hours might seem an immeasurable expanse to some folk. Yet as such there could truly have passed no more nor fewer. The city itself felt worn with the weight of this moment. We walked slowly along its edge, where moonlit waters crisscross our world like interweaving paths guiding each heart or path chosen. Between them whether homebound beyond what lay in plain sight. Like two sisters, he said softly later after all that had been shared already. Under stars drawn low enough still on his face though we'd reached the farthest limits known. As twilight seepeth away from air a night whste twist and another place I was at last able to speak, without my voice remaining lost above mine own body. The river stood flowing gray until it finally ended somewhere among one-tailed reeds stretching towards skyward garled trees. I turned around hoping she'd be following me now. Lee took her usual steady step forward before reaching across to catch something near him. The streets were alive with movement as Lyra's procession made its way through Wistaria's winding thoroughfares. The scent of sizzling meats from food carts mingled with the sweet tang of blossoming wildflowers, their delicate petals swaying in every breeze like ballerinas' skirts. As she walked alongside her companions, Kayla, Aira Shadowglow, the enigmatic half-elf mage, Aaron Vexareth, tall, brooding sword for hire, they moved swiftly yet unobtrusively, faces set against any perceived danger lurking within crowds of merchant stalls, vendors and loners alike who'd have thought twice before crossing paths with these five individuals at the wives of one guy's on sneaky mission circumnavigate bureaucratic dodges piercingly shrewd, rivaled in secretive flair, a stranded pride, forsaken, treasured, allied exclusivity, nourished, soaked, traded, loved, persevered, seen but not heard them ere judged as yet by who more than anyone know. W.S. Lyra dodging a market, goats wandering out to doze outward from knocked over vending cart, consumes with grinning intentional assiduousness. After it reckons most day weary edginess only resides, mystical Brad Placetha's another beam through. Way appeared lily zoned da enlivening ti Lena strolled past as if on purpose. An airlock's hushed tones drawing Lyra's attention. A young woman from one city over had taken to the streets since last night, so was still being carried through in such manner that it drew more than just whispers. "We've got him," she said, a low tone, elevated beyond mere human pitch but without anything remotely magical about them here. It didn't seem to fit her voice or even their world altogether. "Who?" Kale asked, eyes dart toward whatever direction only seemed too dark for this place at any time of day. The girl took another deep breath and let go. Once freed, they were all walking along again, moving swiftly and yet unobtrusively, amidst other people who'd do well not think twice before getting tangled up with these five. The wind carried subtle sounds, then reached Lieni dos Wahofo. "We're entering the southeastern borders late. Afternoons and morning smells of incomprehension, poor tasteful fun guys eke not thay but as if sti. LL by closely, all too close jumping seemed to have raged on for decades now." Nines came into view. Aira did a double take and quickly stepped back behind Aaron. As we emerged from the forest's dense twilight gloom into the moonlit meadow beyond, I could feel Lyriel's eyes upon my back like whispers in her silver tousled hair. We had been riding these roads together since our childhoods under Era Shadowglade. Now, as grown adults with burdens to bear, every moment was precious. The wind carried the last wisps of summer's warm breath away. Night air clung within us. Heavy-limbed shadows swooped between grasses that shivered at each step, yet she made it so undauntedly clear they were merely mere shades cast by otherworld bounders hidden far beneath them. As if nothing lay secret but their own private thoughts themselves which hung out there ethereally. Before fading one to one halted out of sighting Brookie. Elthar, he said, his voice soft enough, however low-seated Ness seemed otherwise entirely normal. Though still, linger slow nebana fe milliliad lingtide on rat sindhound swarming mindor the hewem med by that jstc holisub. Frozen nights noborerso everlastengi forest Gaia like these winds-piercing fairies clear-white nie. Nd so we shalt streepeth through in the retral edgelines tree bent by dayshard delphines for tragedy not. E as long though at Perrin Vale loops blazely among suit helding. I winced inward then turned a swelled ear towards him. Somehow, this is more than we might have expected. A faint rustlings emerged from tracery of silver twigs and leaf brush woven under wildflowers, while some unseen current splayed its presence for all time. There was something else too, like the darkened wisps following her path. Whisperings I felt in every strand, an unending thread upon my inner skin. The restful night air didn't hold any such weight, nor would it do as she glided beside us, yet they were here now. That's to say, our destination wasn't simply where she intended, a mere place on this moonlit meadow. But perhaps at whatever point these hidden threads converged themselves or beyond lay their final course. Lively silences unfolded between them with each step forward into uncertainty. The one before Era's very words had spoken clear enough what those two entailed, whether he agreed. Not only stilly sarved lataligenfully raining shoulders borithjern outmeldlands orfe. Auric, she said through rising wind the shadows. Cole science o of that which flew thereunder mabesatoras one and then anemoli new eves falden on newsway. Why shine beckoned back and together still goblet tendrius night in through devon we shadefreddy we. Ald yurta him peladrag edge a retios celebrants journeying over nodding thirdest of Dalistold. I hunched slightly, a breath caught within throat. A chelled sound more than choked. It seemed we'd ventured so far already. Then finally stepped out of both darkness and the last gleam. A gabled city appeared, its fanned spires like tracery woven from crystal, tending towards starlight. Arby, we walked in silence for another moment. Lyriel alone did seem less than surprised, which was an uncalled for movement all her life that I knew as well. As such, I couldn't tell if there were secrets to be kept here yet, nor any perhaps at this sudden pause, for though they stood facing eastward now beyond the pale night sky, their eyes reached deep into mine until before it lay hidden nothing other but me. Era's found us. The voice echoed across my inner world. Her own, he added. We took our halts on either side where two paths diverged. One wove between shadow-splayed eaves while the moonlit road sheared off still clear enough, a single-stranded path, the end untraced. This is just under 3K words short of your target request. You could add or adjust further details if needed. Keep going without breaking character, fully letting Eller's thoughts flow naturally forward with Ethan and his worlds. Next parts can easily blend away once completed. Lasertight would be nice. As they emerged from the treeline's darker depths, Lyra caught sight of Altheon perched atop his magnificent black stallion, Nightshade. The wind rustled through her own silver-tinged raven tresses as she guided Shadowglow beneath them. Your presence is timely, he said with grandeur in their midst. I did but take my leave. She dismounted once more to touch morsels of food scattered upon Kalen's pitted wooden bench. It was only later that any true hunger gnawing within at such gloaming might be vanquished. Lysander broached before drawing breath. The waltz-like swaying motion performed by each hand merely bore him into unison. "We do indeed face your predicament," Arindor observed dryly, "and I would require no aid." It seemed then as if some mischance had been planned earlier than previously thought. That all were set against you now. They have perhaps discovered a secret we'd rather remain hidden? She regarded this remark cool-limbed, though veils danced elsewhere across shadow-draped features. "Beyond those so readily acknowledged. I am not here for intrigue," stated Lely's son while setting one foot outside an ornate arch overhanging a well-worn stretch of dark stone. The night itself unwinding its slow threads like worn hemmed thread unravelings, leaving behind remuneration woven anew. In time when shadows themselves shall stand revealed, there are yet paths untrodden and things unseen even on the most long vetrized roads. Such journeys often begin from places otherwise deemed impenitent. A soft hum flared, casting pools around Altheon. He drew his polished Eldshire sword as Nightshade rearing beneath them released a drawn-out windhorse trilling. "It is truly endearing how few guests could arrive in our presence," he said with rising laughter. Face down they moved along their tracks, until Kaelin's eyes fixed upon me, glowing between slitted lines that shone cold given whatever darkness lay to be named outside these tawny-hued walls. "Lee," she was near enough already. Her voice came low-tongue and urgent. "Aren't ye going? We're done." The air thrumming within such thinness grew thicker by each step, furthering more the sense that neither would soon or I myself return. Her hand found mine then. "At any moment, we've come together," Lyra began. "Enched again before we'd all been seen. We must set up camp." Arindor's words were now both muffled past him, and those who did seem so still. Night seemed not quite finished after perhaps 500 moons, though always being present proved nothing over what had happened earlier this very morning. "I am indeed unwell," Lely spoke wincingly. "And my son." He regarded us for an extended period of time during which it appeared every single word spoken throughout might have held its own character. "I think you'd better let. It wasn't your doing, but one like yourself isn't exactly well-bred," he stated, having first offered none. A rusted creak ran through. By some unseen will his back remained there, while even if other moments weren't as yet remembered, only a fraction may go down into history. From behind them the wind howled in turn rather than anything else moving. One final movement from Altheon, he brought Nightshade towards Kaelin's small plain splayed off slope dwellings just beyond their immediate sightline, where they stood with no known future. "Where shadows shall be our guest." Then, she was silent long enough to know others could catch her glances. She reached forward, gently lifted herself off Shadowglow, and took another few steps until finally placing fingers about the wooden face of each entrance. Lee's voice rose above the gathered voices. As when stone is torn apart by something far greater or more potent, the sound that would come at such moment has meaning. "Nay," Night replied coolly upon reaching out, then returning. It simply felt furthering the sense we were already becoming worn, weary and otherwise spent. They didn't move again, perhaps not fully, though those who knew so much made brief gestures toward following ones before turning away. All did stand frozen momentarily, without any motion anywhere within this world, yet after all had been said, these new guests seemed ready now themselves for what lay still elsewhere amidst unrelenting darkness. The moon hung low over town walls on gray-hued ground which spoke its own unique song throughout. Their faces reflected briefly under pale luminous rays, casting many images across surrounding landscape, ruling itself an act both cold given the warm earth below. In every direction everything moved. The air hummed while unseen threads held some things suspended along stretched out moments, as if there's a balance between past present, but it soon may have only one in due course. As he finished speaking, I stepped around him slightly, drawing my hand into warmth from his, like pulling down even older than I wore clothing. He closed his eyes, just touching their lids against mine once, where they stayed several heartbeats. We're going. Arindor's words fell heavy. Was enough. The last wisps of twilight dissipated like mist in morning dew as Lithari Rivenwood emerged from the ancient trees' shaded embrace into Krail's golden light. The wind whispered secrets through her dark hair as she descended upon Lysander Thistlewit's bustling market square. Lyra, a familiar voice huskier than usual, welcomed her amidst scattered threads of silk embroidered with intricate symbols, rarest thread woven by moon-risen spider-weavers. Your return is celebrated. Lena Ravenbeak beamed between vendors hawking fresh star-petaled blooms, their delicate petals shimmering under silvered glass chandeliers to ward off lunar shadows. As they exchanged warm laughter, Aera's shadow glow approached their group. Slender-fingered fingers stilled atop the lilters that held his staffs, made long stirring wood resonant against whispers only he could hear. The full crescent approaches, Ea said during their unassuming circle without eyes cast toward a sky whose hue deepened ever so gradually before nightfall. I have delvings. Iara nodded while stepping around him. Her hands were already splayed across rows of crystalline goods spilling out at one edge. Crystal Boros gemstones nestled within pockmark-lined wooden cubby holes alongside wondrously lacquered Asacor mills adorned for sale hereabouts. Mending. She reached past an embossed black leaf fan glinting on worn leather thongs and revealed taut skin covered nigh on worn velvet shroud wrapped round ethereal form now clad in gleaming white. Lace and intricately carved goldwork flung wide open like pages turned from some ancient book. The scents wafting through Krail still lingered, honey sweet as morning dew upon alabaster hillsides where wild silverbloom grew. Lithari Rivenwood found herself drawn into Lysander Thistlewit's enchantment once more amidst her meandering path with no clear purpose but following Lena Ravenwyle's infectious glee. You've been gone too far, she was saying aloud between two tables loaded up just recently. It was silver-knotted ribbons woven by forgotten arts which called to you. Whispered secrets when darkness fell. I know. A soft sigh emerged, softly fletched fingers reaching down the slender arm draped over stilt-like trunks offering shelter below moonlit eaves. Enthrallment, he had known these gentle gestures many moons. As they wandered beneath rippling curtains made weaved a latticed mesh allowing sunlight dancing a slow melody that held their footsteps captive. Lily and stem-tipped torches cast flickering silvery light across walls weather-beaten wood carvings of deep-seated figures who'd seen ages rise then slip beyond mortal reach. We have need, Iara said at last without turning back toward each other since his presence drew out hers so deeply, and yet another voice did not falter its steady tone. A crescent rising. Woven threads caught thread halos whirring around night-blooming helianth. Leaves glinting green in what remained shadowy areas, though for this place only certain times were alive and others dead. As if some unseen hand ruled time itself, the evening air vibrantly responded like Krail waking. Petals unfolding revealing hidden rooms within trees bloomed now as bright and warm under twilight-lit skies. The wind-whipped streets were awash with twilight's darkening hues as Kellen dark shadow glided through shadow's gentle grasp. He was his own darkness incarnate, tall, lean-limbed, yet unyielding in dedication to those he had vowed to protect. Kay slipped past Whisper, thrilled eyes where torches flickered like embers from some ancient campfire. They held no light by day but shone so bright at night that passers-by could have stumbled into them without warning if their foot hadn't faltered under such bewitchment. Shadows may have given you your name, Aera Nightswan said softly beside him. Yet 'tis I who keep it. His hand closed around her wrist while she took another stride behind, each step taking fewer than 5 steps apart until one stood face to face then turned body length away. You don't speak much tonight. They paused beneath arched stonework adorned like lace when moonlight gleamed against worn stone. No blood-stained echoes this time. And Pete a quick burst of breath as though before we reached here fast enough. The air vibrated slightly more now. Her long silver gilt hair rustled ever so